Let's bring in our panel about the breaking news first. Fox News chief political analyst Brit Hume, Fox News contributor, former White House press secretary Ari Fleischer, and Yemisi Egbewali is a former chief of staff and advisor to the Biden White House press office. Brit, if as projected, and again, we expect to get this picture as Jennifer described it of the shaking hands, this is a really big deal for that region and for this president.
It certainly is, Brett. It certainly is, Brett. It's a very big deal indeed, something that seemed almost impossible for so long, not to mention the last 2 years since October 7th. So I think, you know, the president will get a great deal of credit for this. It was his peace plan that formed the basis, I guess, for this agreement, so far as we know. But you know, we've been through so many of these things that have come so close. So I think I'll believe it when I see those hostages released.
Well, there you go. Britt, just while you were talking, as mentioned, they were waiting on Truth Social, and here it is. President Donald Trump. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel and all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Again, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, out on Truth Social as we were talking there. Ari, put this in historical perspective, knowing all we know about the years and years, decades of turmoil in the Middle East.
Well, what's truly remarkable about this is previous breakthroughs existed between Israel and unique nations, Israel and Egypt, Israel and Jordan. Then you had the Abraham Accords expanding it to a wider group of nations, Bahrain, the UAE. But never before have you had an agreement with Hamas, eight Muslim nations, 7 Arab, 1 nation, Turkey, Muslim nation, Israel, and the United States. That is the breakthrough here. From a humane point of view, it is wonderful and joyous that the hostages will come home. Families can finally, at long last, be reunited. But there are 2 big steps that remain, and those steps are the disarmament of Hamas and Hamas relinquishing control and power. Those 2 are going to be the trickiest ones yet.
Yeah, but see, obviously the Biden administration was working towards this. They didn't have success. This looks like a major breakthrough. We have, you know, Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who obviously was crucial in the last administration for the Abraham Accords, the Gulf states basically establishing relations with Israel. They were crucial to all of this for weeks and weeks. Your thoughts on this big picture and how Democrats maybe will react to it?
Well, I think some Democrats might say that real diplomacy happens in quiet and not necessarily on Truth Social, and that this administration has oftentimes celebrated before things are inked. However, I do think there will be great bipartisan consensus on this. This is a win for both sides here. I mean, I got the opportunity when I worked for President Biden to get to meet some of those hostages, some of the young children that were released, and I know the impact and the pain that this has had for a lot of those people. And so I think that this will be a great way for Democrats and Republicans at a time that they're so fraught on the Hill given the shutdown to find a common ground.
Yeah, Britt, you know, in the wake of October 7th, and obviously we're one day from that anniversary, to look back and all that has transpired, Israel was reluctant at first to get to this point, and it really was President Trump pushing, arguably behind the scenes, Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, to get to this ceasefire. And the key part, as you mentioned, is the hostages, both dead and alive, coming out.
Well, I have to say that there's been an awful lot, as Ari suggested, the ingredients of this are numerous, and they have to do with the Abraham Accords, as was mentioned. They have to do with the attack on Iran, which weakened Iran and made it much less important a player. They have to do with the way Israel determinedly fought this war and defeated Hamas militarily. That doesn't mean they're gone as a terrorist force, but all those things are part of it. And I think the back and forth between the president and the prime minister may have been overblown to some extent. But here we are, and let us just pray that the hostages are released and that the further steps that are contemplated in this deal can go forward, what a new world we'd have.
Yeah, and just moments ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu putting out this: with God's help, we will bring them all home. Ari, it's, you know, you think about, and I've had these hostage families on the show many times, and they kept on saying, don't forget about us after all this time. Half of them are likely dead, but there are some that are still alive of the, we think, 49. And this will be a major visual if and when this all comes to pass as expected tomorrow.
It'll be a remarkable moment from both international diplomacy point of view, but also just that personal, humane point of view. A family to be reunited when they may have given up hope, when they may have wondered if we will ever see our child again. Just imagine you're one of those parents. It's a beautiful moment. You know, when Marco Rubio interrupted that meeting to walk in and hand the president a note, you had to know something was up and it was big. Nobody does that. You don't interrupt a president at an event unless it's extraordinary.
Well, Andy Card.
And that is what led to President Trump then quickly leaving that room and wrapping this up and bringing us to this moment where the hostages may be on the verge of being released.
Yeah, it's truly an amazing sight. Thank you all for rolling with the punches here on the breaking news. Big news out of the Middle East. A deal has been done according to President Trump.
To a Fox News alert, President Trump just announced a deal between Israel and Hamas. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin has been on this from the beginning, live from a very, very, very late Tel Aviv. Jennifer, good to see you.
Thank you, Laura. Well, incredible news here tonight that broke just within the last hour. First, we heard on Israeli television that there was a deal for the first phase of this peace plan, this agreement in Gaza to end the war and to release the hostages and to release Palestinian prisoners. Then we had the Trump Truth Social post, which really is what Israel was waiting for in order to make the formal announcement. And the Truth Social post said, "I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly." In essence, we also have heard from the foreign minister of Qatar, the prime minister, of Qatar, who made the similar announcement that the hostages and the prisoners will be released and that Israel will be withdrawing to an agreed-upon line. Now, based on my reporting tonight, Laura, that agreed-upon withdrawal line will be about 51% of Gaza, so it will not be out of the entire Gaza Strip, because in this first phase, which is expected to start on Saturday or Sunday in terms of the 20 live hostages being released, hopefully all together from the Gaza Strip, there is no word yet on the dead hostages, the 28 hostages who are deceased, that Hamas says that they have not been able to locate all of them because Israel is controlling right now 80% of the Gaza Strip. So that withdrawal will be taking place after the release, as the hostages are released, so that they can then find the rest of the hostages. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote tonight in a post that with God's help, all of the hostages will be brought home in good time. So a sense that while this first phase, which is a very important phase in terms of hostages and prisoners and the withdrawal of the Israeli military and its immediate ceasefire, that very important phase has been negotiated with the help of Jared Kushner, as well as Steve Witkoff and the Qatari Prime Minister, the head of Turkish intelligence. We have a photograph showing the Major General Nitzan Alon, who is the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, main negotiator for hostages, shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Qatar, and also Steve Witkoff shaking hands with the head of Turkish intelligence. The smiles on their faces suggest that this deal for the first phase. Now, as we know, Laura, the devil is in the details, and the second phase, which is much more difficult in this overall plan to end the war in Gaza, involves the disarmament of Hamas. Where will those weapons go? Where will the leaders of Hamas go? Will they be evacuated from the Gaza Strip? Will they be allowed to stay there? And who will rule the Gaza Strip when when this is over, because Israel has long said that they will not allow Hamas to remain in power or to remain armed. So that second phase is going to be a lot trickier. But again, through the president's attention to this, his pressure on both the Israeli side as well as with the help of the Qataris and the Turks, the pressure on Hamas gave little wiggle room in terms of the release of these hostages. This will be disappointing, perhaps, if all of the deceased hostages are not released at the same time. We've been talking to families all week about how devastating it is to not have closure for those sons and daughters who have died and are being held by Hamas. There will be at least 1,700 Palestinian prisoners released. There have been negotiations at the last minute about the names who will be on that list, who will be included. 250 of those prisoners are likely to be having served lifetime prison sentences in Israel. So that is a very hard, bitter pill for the Israelis to swallow as well. But tonight, good news from Sharm el-Sheikh for this first phase of the peace plan. Laura.
And Jennifer, it's pretty interesting that Jared Kushner with Witkoff was part of this duo that really drove this to the president's desk. Jared Kushner, obviously instrumental in the Abraham Accords, which no one thought was possible in the first term. And people wondered whether Jared would have much involvement at all in the second term. And here, only, 8 months, 9 months into the administration, this is a pretty pivotal achievement.
A huge achievement, and certainly Jared Kushner's achievement as the negotiator of the Abraham Accords in the first Trump term. He has a lot of credibility in the Middle East, and he has used that, as you've heard President Trump say, that this into the Gaza war is just the first phase of what he sees as a broader Middle East peace plan, if you will, that would broaden the Abraham Accords. That certainly is what is motivating Jared Kushner. Steve Witkoff has been at the center of hostage negotiations, has brought many of those hostages out from Gaza as well as around the world. There have been hostage releases, but it would not have happened without President Trump remember when Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu came to the White House, there was a tremendous amount of pressure the hours and days before that, after President Trump had been at the UN and met with Arab leaders about what was needed for this deal to take place. The Arab leaders were very united, along with Turkey, in pressuring Hamas. And Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with Prime Minister Netanyahu to craft the 20-point plan that really is the basis for the deal, the first phase of the deal that will be signed in Sharm el-Sheikh tomorrow at noon, we're told. So those meetings, that involvement of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff and President Trump, this would not have happened otherwise.
And some word that President Trump may be flying to the region this weekend to be there. He's been invited there. Jennifer, this is fascinating, historic first step, but an important step. 1,700 pretty tough prisoners to release, but man, this is welcome news. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Just while you were talking, as mentioned, they were waiting on Truth Social, and here it is, President Donald Trump. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, and all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Again, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, out on Truth Social as we were talking there. Ari, put this in historical perspective, knowing all we know about the years and years, decades of turmoil in the Middle East.
Well, what's truly remarkable about this is previous breakthroughs existed between Israel and unique nations, Israel and Egypt, Israel and Jordan. Then you had the Abraham Accords expanding it to a wider group of nations, Bahrain, the UAE. But never before have you had an agreement with Hamas, 8 Muslim nations, 7 Arab, 1 nation, Turkey, Muslim nation, Israel, and the United States. That is the breakthrough here. From a humane point of view, it is wonderful and joyous. that the hostages will come home. Families can finally, at long last, be reunited. But there are two big steps that remain, and those steps are the disarmament of Hamas and Hamas relinquishing control and power. Those two are going to be the trickiest ones yet.
Yeah, but see, obviously the Biden administration was working towards this. They didn't have success. This looks like a major breakthrough. We have, Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who obviously was crucial in the last administration for the Abraham Accords, the Gulf states basically establishing relations with Israel. They were crucial to all of this for weeks and weeks. Your thoughts on this big picture and how Democrats maybe will react to it?
Well, I think some Democrats might say that real diplomacy happens in quiet and not necessarily on Truth Social, and that this administration has oftentimes celebrated before things are inked. However, I do think there will be great bipartisan consensus on this. This is a win for both sides here. I mean, I got the opportunity when I worked for President Biden to get to meet some of those hostages, some of the young children that were released, and I know the impact and the pain that this has had for a lot of those people. And so I think that this will be a great way for Democrats and Republicans at a time that they're so fraught on the Hill, given the shutdown, to find a common ground.
Yeah, Britt, in the wake of October 7th, and obviously we're one day from that anniversary, to look back and all that has transpired, Israel was reluctant at first to get to this point. And it really was President Trump pushing, arguably behind the scenes, Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, to get to this ceasefire. And the key part, as you mentioned, is the hostages, both dead and alive, coming out.
Well, I have to say that there's been an awful lot, as Ari suggested, the ingredients of this are numerous, and they have to do with the Abraham Accords, as was mentioned. They have to do with the attack on Iran, which weakened Iran and made it much less important a player. They have to do with the way Israel determinedly fought this war and defeated Hamas militarily. That doesn't mean they're gone as a terrorist force. But all those things are part of it. And I think the back and forth between the president and the prime minister may have been overblown to some extent. But here we are, and let us just pray that the hostages are released and that the further steps that are contemplated in this deal can go forward. What a new world we'd have.
Yeah, and just moments ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu putting out this: "With God's help, we will bring them all home." Ari, it's... you think about, and I've had these hostage families on the show many times, and they kept on saying, don't forget about us after all this time. Half of them are likely dead, but there are some that are still alive of the, we think, 49. And this will be a major visual if and when this all comes to pass as expected tomorrow.
It'll be a remarkable moment from both international diplomacy point of view, but also just that personal, humane point of view. A family to be reunited when they may have given up hope, when they may have wondered if we will ever see our child again. Just imagine you're one of those parents. It's a beautiful moment. When Marco Rubio interrupted that meeting to walk in and hand the president a note, you had to know something was up and it was big. Nobody does that. You don't interrupt a president at an event unless it's extraordinary.
Well, Andy Card.
And that is what led to President Trump then quickly leaving that room and wrapping this up and bringing us to this moment where the hostages may be on the verge of being released.
Yeah, it's truly an amazing sight. Thank you all for rolling with the punches here on the breaking news. Big news out of the Middle East. A deal has been done according to President Trump, and Israel and Hamas will sign this.
All right, joining us now live on the phone is the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, wow. If you would have asked me 2 years ago yesterday if this was possible, I would have bet everything I had no. Congratulations, sir. Can you give us more of the details?
Well, thank you very much, Sean. It's a great honor to be involved in it. We had some tremendous help, as you know, with everybody from Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco, and we had everybody, JD, the whole group was just amazing. And the military was, as you know, very instrumental in getting this done. We have a great military with great leadership. The whole world came together, to be honest. So many countries that you wouldn't have even thought of it. And they came together. The world has come together around this deal. And that's something I would say that without that wouldn't happen. So many countries that you wouldn't have thought of have wired their best wishes and their commitment to do whatever is necessary. The countries surrounding have all signed. I mean, they're all signed up, and it's been really an amazing period of time, and so great for Israel, so great for Muslims, for the Arab countries, and so great for this country, for the United States of America, and that we could be involved in, making a deal like this happen, because it was, many years they talked about peace in the Middle East. This is more than Gaza. This is peace in the Middle East, and it's an incredible thing.
Mr. President, you are expending a lot of effort worldwide to bring about peace. How did this become one of your top agenda items, considering this has gone on for decades and decades? A lot of the Arab nations that have formed coalitions with you were reluctant and resistant for decades to ever be a part of the solution. That was a big part of what happened here today. Can you explain that part of it?
Well, I develop relationships with people, and sometimes those relationships lead to great things. And in the case of many of the Arab nations, the wealthiest nations in the world, if you look, although with what we've done in the United States, I think we top everybody by a lot with the tariffs and all of that. But, having the ability to deal with trade, having the ability to use tariffs to help me make a point, the tariffs have brought peace to the world. I'm telling you, they brought peace to the world. And not only here, but with so many other deals. I've made 7 peace deals where countries were, in many cases, 30, 31 years, 135, 137 years. They've been fighting and millions of people being killed, and I brought peace. And I did it through, in not all cases, but probably in at least 5 of the 7 that we've done so far, it was through trade. That we're not going to deal with people that fight. We're not going to deal, and we're going to put tariffs on you. We're not going to let you deal in the United States. We'll put tariffs on you. And without that, without the tariffs, I mean, far more than even the money that we're taking in, which is trillions of dollars, essentially trillions of dollars, far much more importantly, it gives you a tremendous road to peace and the saving of millions of lives, just millions and millions of lives. You look at India and Pakistan. I said, well, we're not going to do business with either of you if you don't put it together. These are 2 nuclear nations that were 7 planes were shot down, as you know, and they were really at it. They were going at it, and I said, we're not going to do any business with you. We're not going to have anything to do with you. We're going to put massive tariffs on you, in both cases. And they said, well, we got to start talking about this. This is tremendous amounts of money and power we're dealing with. And within 24 hours, I had a peace deal. They stopped the fighting, and we can go one after another. You've been really nice enough to announce all of the deals, but there have been many deals, and
We've
a lot of
reported on
them
them all.
a lot of the settlements were based on trade.
Mr. President, I actually hope the Supreme Court is listening to you right now, because I think you are making a very critical argument, as this very issue will go before the United States Supreme Court, and that is that I would argue that tariffs are critical to your role as Commander-in-Chief. Your constitutional authority is based in it, and it would cripple your ability to fully defend the country. Mr. President, I think there's a misunderstanding among some about a question I asked you when we were together in Alaska, and that is about the Trump doctrine. I think people don't really understand the Trump doctrine. I totally agree with you. We should never have forever wars anymore. I think military technology is changing that before our eyes. But more importantly, some people seem to interpret that as that you will not use the military. But yet in your first term, you wiped out the ISIS caliphate. You took out Soleimani on that tarmac. You took out Baghdadi and associates. You dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. And here in your second term, you gave Iran 50 days to achieve a peace deal. They did not do so. And then you said they could not have nuclear weapons, and you did something that nobody thought would happen, and you took out their nuclear sites. How impactful was that decision, do you believe, in this deal being possible today?
Well, Iran was about 1 month, maybe 2 months away from having a nuclear weapon. And if I allowed that to happen, this deal would not have been possible. Or if it was, it would have a tremendous cloud over it, because you'd have a country with a nuclear weapon that was not obviously very friendly. And the power of nuclear weapons is something that we shouldn't even be talking about. It's so massive. And so by doing that, we now have something where actually Iran and Iran and a number of people have been talking about a deal, but it's a very much different Iran. And frankly, we've had some very good conversations. And as you saw, they blessed the deal. They put out a few hours ago a statement that they agree with the deal and they blessed the deal. That's a tremendous thing. I believe if they had a nuclear weapon, there would be a whole different. Even if we made the deal, it would have a very dark cloud over it because of what could potentially happen. So now there are no dark clouds. We're going to have peace. And by the way, I believe Iran's going to be actually a part of the whole peace situation. But countries that frankly didn't get along, they're all involved, and it's brought the whole world together. It's amazing. I've never seen anything. It's so good for Israel. I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu just a little while ago. He called. He said, "I can't believe it." He said, "Everybody's liking me now." Meaning him. He said, I said, "They're more importantly, they're loving Israel again," and they really are. I said, Israel cannot fight the world, Bibi. They can't fight the world, and he understands that very well. So it's amazing the way it's all come together, and it's a beautiful picture. I don't know if it could ever happen again. It was just a set of circumstances, like, for instance, taking out the potential nuclear power of Iran. So many different things happened that were so amazing. It's a lot of talent involved, I'll tell you, but there was a certain degree of luck, too. You know, you need luck also. There is such a thing as luck.
Mr. President, you said in your statement that this is the first phase of the peace plan and that the hostages will be released very soon. I assume that means both those that are alive and those that are not alive. And Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line. Can you expand on that and tell us maybe what part two, is there a part two or a part three? Because the idea has to be a lasting peace, and would that include the security guarantees that Hamas can no longer be armed with weapons that they can fire into Israel? I was in a city, a border city in Gaza, near Gaza. They had gotten hit with 10,000 rockets in 10 years. I was in those terror tunnels.
I think you're going to see all of that disappear. I think you're going to see people getting along, and you'll see Gaza being rebuilt. We're forming a council that the Council of Peace, we think it's going to be called, and it's going to be very powerful. And it's going to really, I think to a large extent, it's going to have a lot to do with the whole Gaza situation. People are going to be taken care of. It's going to be a different world. I think really the Middle East came together. Amazingly, they came together. You know, they have some countries with extraordinary wealth, and just spending a small portion of that wealth can do so much for that area. So we'll be involved in it. But the big thing is hostages are going to be released. It's probably our time would be probably Monday, and you know they're a terrible situation. They're deep in the earth, and they're being gotten, and a lot of things are happening right now. As we speak, so much is happening to get the hostages freed, and we think they'll all be coming back on Monday. So it looks like that's the thing, and that'll include the bodies of the dead. And you know, the parents that I talked to so many of them, but the parents are almost more intent, but equally intent is getting in just about all cases, their son's body back than they are as though the young man was alive. It's just the same intensity. They want their baby's body back. That's what one woman said. I want my baby's body back. And, you know, the son is 25, 26 years old. So that's a very big part of it, getting all of it's about 28 the number is 28, will be coming back, but unfortunately dead.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court, you talked about how tariffs are critical, and I mentioned the Supreme Court will be weighing in on that issue. Interestingly, the issue of tariffs comes up on another issue with your constitutional role as Commander-in-Chief, and that has to do with putting tariffs on countries that are buying Russian oil. There's a report on Reuters tonight that Ukraine has stepped up their drone attacks on Russian refineries, and the Russian people now are waiting in gas lines after Ukraine targeted their oil refineries. You know, I was there. I watched. You've been trying to give Vladimir Putin every opportunity imaginable, and he's rejected it. And now the Ukrainians have up their game, and they're now fighting without handcuffs on, and they're going after their money, and you're helping them by saying to other countries, don't do business with Russia if they're going to invade innocent countries.
Well, just to go to the first part of your question, without tariffs, it's a different country. Tariffs have been used on us to take our wealth and to take tremendous amounts of our power away from us. They've been used against us by China, by Europe. If you look at the European Union, they used them very smartly against us, and you know that's not happening anymore. We've signed deals, and we've signed deals. It's not like anybody was forced. So we've signed deals, and the people that brought the lawsuit against us, that's before the Supreme Court, these are all foreign-related countries because all of a sudden they can't take advantage of the United States anymore because we are, and I'm not taking advantage of them, but billions and even trillions of dollars is pouring into our country. You see that. And we're a rich country again. And more importantly, we're a powerful country in terms of peace. I can create peace with tariffs. I'm using them for a lot of different reasons. If that power was taken away from the President of the United States, it would be a terrible, terrible day for our country. And I would say many of the things that I've done could be eradicated, and the United States would be in a very, very bad, vulnerable position. And these are enemies of the country that are pursuing that lawsuit. And I would hope that that lawsuit would disappear. The country would be in a very different position than it is right now. And you wouldn't be stopping wars. You wouldn't be using the power of trade and the power of tariffs to stop wars. I've used it as an example. I say to a country that if you're going to continue to fight, we're going to put a 20% or 100% or a 300% tariff on your country in dealing with the United States. And I haven't had one country want to take that on, and they've stopped wars. I've saved millions of lives using tariffs. So if for any reason the court ruled against, and you know, on the legal merits, we should be absolutely entitled. Almost every single legal scholar said the president has the right to enact tariffs. If you didn't have that right, we'd be in big trouble because other countries would be able to do it against us, and we wouldn't be able to do it against them. So it would be very unfair to the country. But in the meantime, we're making deals with Japan, with South Korea. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars like we've never done before. And we're making friends, frankly. They respect us again. You know, we're like a respected country again. We were laughed at. Nobody took advantage of us worse than our so-called allies on trade. And that's under the Biden administration and under Barack Hussein Obama. We were a disaster. We were a laughingstock. But it really, and then we did great. We had one of the best economies in history and under my administration. And then when this travesty of an election took place and we relied on Biden, he let the world take advantage of us. And we had tremendous heartache and just, it was horrible. And it was blowing up. So we came in, and the power of trade, the power of tariffs, all of the different powers that a president is entitled to and allowed, and legally allowed, has brought us into a different country. We're a highly respected country again. You know, it's very interesting. The king of Saudi Arabia said it. He said, "Sir, 1 year ago, you were a dead country." He used the word dead, and other people have too. We were a dead country. Now you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're the hottest country in the world. And if we didn't have that power, I wouldn't have been able to make this recent deal, which is the biggest of them all, probably the biggest deal ever made. And we're getting the hostages back. And they're going to hopefully come back in a good, healthy state. But, you know, they'll be healthy. In a short period of time, they'll be healthy. But their lives were hell. But we're getting them back. we're getting, again, the bodies back, the bodies of the dead. We're getting them back, and which is very important to a lot of people. And things are going to be much different in the Middle East, but things are going to be different all over the world. And without the tariffs, you would not be in this position, I can tell you that. So we'd be a much different country, a weakened country. I wouldn't say a laughing stock, but we were a laughing stock just a year ago. If you look back with the Biden, the whole world was laughing at us. And by the way, they were charging us tariffs, and we weren't retaliating because we had a president that didn't understand what it meant and didn't understand what the meaning of a tariff is. It brought peace and wealth to our country and to the world.
Mr. President, a last question, and I could ask you a million questions about the Schumer shutdown, about the Antifa roundtable you had today. You know me, I can keep going, but I won't. By the end of this term as president, what vision do you have? What would you like to see Gaza look like? What will the relationship with Israel and other Middle Eastern countries be like, as this process continues to unfold, and as you have convinced these other nations to finally involve themselves? And then we'll let you go, sir.
Well, Gaza is going to be a peaceful, much safer place. Obviously, it's been blown to pieces, and this is just not by Israel. This is over years and years and years. It's been heartache for many years. A lot of people say this is a deal for 3,000 years. So whether you say 500, because some people say 500 based on events, but other people say this is something historic for 3,000 years. There's nothing ever going to be bigger than this. And so Gaza, we believe, is going to be a much safer place, and it's going to be a place that reconstructs, and other countries in the area will help it reconstruct because they have tremendous amounts of wealth, and they want to see that happen. And we'll be involved in helping them make it successful and helping it stay peaceful, but I think it's going to be peaceful. I think, again, the Iran situation was very important, doing what we had to do, which was, again, 22 years. It was planned to be done, and no other president wanted to do it or whatever, for whatever reason, but they didn't do it. And having that was very important. But, I'm very confident there'll be peace in the Middle East. I mean, the words peace in the Middle East is something people have been striving for hundreds of years, for centuries, for many centuries. And we really have. Every country has come together, and on a little different scale, but so important. It seems like everything's at a different scale, but we're going to make our cities safe. We're going to make Chicago safe. We're going to make Memphis, Tennessee, where they're right now, we're making it safe. That there's a difference in 1 week. It's like day and night. It's so important what we did in D.C., Washington, D.C., our own capital that people come to, and it was crime-ridden, and now it's as safe as there is anywhere in the country. It's safe. It's clean. We've cleaned it. We've gotten rid of the thugs. We took 1,700, in many cases, career criminals, and in many cases, people coming from other countries that shouldn't have been allowed to come, gang members from other countries, people from jails. The jails were literally opened up in Venezuela and other countries into our country, and we've gotten them out, or we're getting them out. But we took out 1,700 in Washington, D.C., 1,700 criminals that are no longer there. And we have a safe, beautiful capital again. You can go and eat at the restaurants. The restaurants are booming. They were closing one after another, and now they're booming. They're opening. And this all took place over the last 2 months. It's amazing, actually. Nobody's ever seen a transformation like they have in Washington, D.C. It's as hot as it can get. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And to see it be safe with our, beautiful buildings, the graffitis off the walls, the tents from all over, thousands of tents in our beautiful parks, our national parks. The tents are all gone. Everything is, and it's only going to get better over the next year. There'll be some rebuilding and some fixing up and some cleaning up, and people are proud of our capital again. But the beautiful thing is it's really safe. You can walk down the middle of the street with your wife. You can walk down the middle of the street by yourself. Your family can, and you have no fear. If you said that a year ago, they had almost no chance of making it to the other side of the town. And so we're very proud of D.C., and it serves as a catalyst, and it serves as really an example of what can be done. But to do that, you have to bring people in to do it. You can't have woke police people that aren't suited to be police. You can't have the kind of problems that we have that almost in all cases, it's Democrat-run cities. So you can't do that. So we're very proud of Washington. It's a safe place, and everybody should. You want to see some beautiful things in Washington, you go there. Right now, your biggest problem is going to be you're probably not going to be able to get into a restaurant. They're packed and they're booming.
Mr. President, I think there's a lot of lessons to learn for how we got to this point tonight. The proper use of the strength of the United States military played a big role in this happening, the appropriate use of it as well, and your willingness, obviously, to invest a lot of political capital and time and energy and resources and networking and, to bring a lot of people to the table. We pray for the people in the region, and we pray this is a peace that lasts forever. But this is a great first step. Mr. President, historic by every measure. We appreciate you being on with us tonight, sir.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And here to react, Alex Marlow, Breitbart editor-in-chief. All right, Alex, if Donald Trump doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, the committee should disband.
Oh, absolutely. This is a historic achievement. He's taken away all of Hamas's leverage over Israel. It's gone now. The hostages were the leverage. If they're coming home, we're going to have a celebration, but it also could be the end of Hamas as a military power in the region. This could be the beginning of lasting peace in the region, God willing. Well, again, this was a 2-year nightmare for the Israeli families that had to endure this. And I had tried to put it out of my mind what Hamas did on October 7th. But if anyone out there is not familiar with what Hamas did to innocents on the ground and the torturing of children and women and rapes in front of husbands, then the gutting of people in front of their spouses, that's what these people had to endure. And I know a lot of criticism heaped on Israel, and I'm sure there were some excesses here. I mean, I'm sure there were. That's what war is. It's filled with excesses. But this has been a living nightmare, and the people of Gaza have also suffered. Without a doubt, they've suffered through this. This had to end. Yeah, Israel's counteroffensive was highly effective, and it was going to continue so long as those hostages were there. So now there is hope that they don't have to press the way they had to in order to, I would say, decimate Hamas and avenge some of those deaths that were, again, I think we really gloss over how horrible October the 7th was. We've moved on way too quickly, and I'm very eager to hear the stories of some of these hostages. Hopefully they'll be healthy enough to tell them, because I want to hear about the atrocities that Hamas committed. I had a chance with friends who were hosting some of the hostages in the United States to talk to them. Now, they didn't want to share, and they had broken legs and broken arms, never properly set in captivity. And one was a young woman, and she was very she was very recalcitrant about speaking about what happened because of the other hostages there. In fact, they said to her, if you tell what you know, all of what you know, expect the remaining hostages to be tortured. And so they didn't tell, a lot of them didn't tell their full story because they were told that before they were released. Yeah, and we cannot forget those things. We need all the details. We need a full accounting so that everyone understands Hamas's atrocities before we forget. But then we get to do this amazing thing where we get to move on and build this economic coalition that was out there. Let's get Gaza Lago going, and let's build. Donald Trump's a builder. We need peace and prosperity. Everything is so negative all the time. Yes. It's war. It's strife in Portland. It's the anti-ICE rhetoric. It's the you're a Nazi. Yes. He's a Nazi. It's all that. It's peace and prosperity time. That's what it should be for the Middle East. We're getting the peace going. That was a war that wouldn't have happened if not for Joe Biden's irresponsible policies in the region. And now Donald Trump can help build it back up with a growing coalition of those Abraham Accord nations. How about his staff, though? He pulls in. They had Tony Blinken. God bless him, but that just was a disaster. So had Tony Blinken. They had John Kerry. I forgot about John Kerry. He has Kushner and Witkoff. Witkoff's never done this. He's like a business guy. He comes in, he's like bringing home hostages. Trump's, hosting him. And then Kushner comes back in from his business world, and he's like, let's get this done. I think Donald Trump, it's amazing. Of everything he's done, I think arguably his foreign policy has been his strongest part of his portfolio. Coming in with no foreign policy background, he's somehow the best person in American modern history and foreign policy.
That's why the establishment really hates him, right?
right.
Because
Exactly
he's exposed their incompetence. Alex, we were going to have you on about another topic, but you moved right in. Thank you so much. Great to see you
My
in
pleasure.
person.
Thanks, Laura.
Here with all the key details, our very own Trey Yangst. He's live. He's in Israel tonight. Trey, this is history in the making. I know it's early in the morning there, but the Israeli people will wake up to news that those hostages will, in fact, be coming home.
Yeah, Sean, good evening. It's a historic moment in the Middle East. President Trump announcing that both Israel and Hamas have signed on to the first phase of his 20-point peace plan to end the war inside Gaza. This means that 20 living hostages will be freed from Hamas captivity. They'll be exchanged for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, and Israeli forces will have to withdraw from certain lines inside Gaza. They will still stay within the enclave, but they will pull back a bit. All of this came together just a few hours ago. President Trump sending his Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner to Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. They were joined by Turkish officials and Qatari officials to try to hammer out the final pieces of this agreement and bring it across the finish line. Then President Trump got that information from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, ultimately making the announcement on Truth Social that a deal was reached for the first phase of his agreement. This is going to alleviate suffering for Palestinian civilians. It is going to reunite the hostages with their loved ones, and it's going to enter into a chapter where the Middle East can work to formally end the war inside Gaza, bring that conflict to an end, and ultimately open up the door for more peace agreements between Israel and its Arab neighbors. I can tell you I've covered this story for more than 7 years, Sean. This is the first time that I can remember where Israelis and Palestinians were celebrating the same thing. Sean?
That shows history in the making. Trey Yangst in Israel tonight. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.